Alright, so for this project, this is I'm gonna first just go through the assumption values given for the small apartment investment problem. There's 8 units in the apartment complex. I push 9. Rent's gonna be $600 a month. Rent growth rate of 3%. And then a vacancy rate of 9%. I'm going to go back through after and format all the numbers so that the decimal places are consistent. Fixed expenses are going to be $4,500. Let's see. Variable expenses $5,000. And reserves for replacement are going to be $4,500 as well. Then fixed expense growth 3%. These next 3 are actually all going to be 3%. Appreciation total for holding periods 10%. And then the acquisition price is going to be $375,000. Loan to value ratio 80%. I'm going to come back to the cells B 14, 16, and 18 because we'll have to use formulas, I'm assuming, to get those. But the mortgage interest rate is going to be 5%. Loan term is going to be at 30. And then moving down to cost recovery periods, 27.5. Cost of improvements at time of purchase, $6,000. Investors' tax rate on income, 33%. Tax rate on capital gain for appreciation is 15%. And then tax rate on capital gain for depreciation taken is going to be 25%. Investors' required rate of return, 10%. Selling cost is 6%. And then the holding period is going to be 3 years. Calculation for the loan amount is just going to be the acquisition price times the loan to value ratio, if it'll let me. Come on. I'll just type it. Monthly loan payment, you're going to do the PMT function, and then you're going to take the mortgage rate, which I don't know why I keep blurring it out, but it's going to be B15 divided by 12, comma, and then you're going to take the loan term, multiply that one by 12, and then your loan amount of $300,000. So for depreciable base, I'm assuming that we're just going to use an 85% rate like the example shows. So I'm going to do that. You're going to take that rate times the acquisition price. You're going to get 318,750. I went ahead and just set up the tables because it just saves time on the video. But yeah, so to get the potential gross income, you're just going to take your number of units, and I'm not sure how to do F4 on a Mac, so I'm just going to do it this way, times the rent, which you can make absolute as well. It's going to be the same, times 12, because that's how many payments you're making per year. 2 years in this example, we're gonna have to factor in the growth rate to figure out the PGI for year 2 and 3. So I'm gonna take this and then do 1 plus growth rate here. Well, and then I can actually lock this in, and I can drag it across here and it will adjust. So yeah, that's the next 2 years with the growth rate factored in. That's what the PGI will be. So for the vacancy losses, you're going to take the PGI for the first year, which was C30, and I'm going to put a parenthesis right here. And you're going to multiply that by the vacancy rate. And if you lock this rate here in, then you can drag it across to all 3. And then for the effective gross income, it's just the sum of these numbers. So and I'm just going to go ahead and take the decimals out. So yeah, for this right here, for these 3, they were given up here. So I just came up here, referenced B5, and then I inputted right here, and then I just drug those down, and it corresponded with the above variables because they're in order. For the second and third year for each of these, just going to take the this given value here and multiply it by 1 plus the growth rate and same thing as before. If you make this absolute, you can drag it across. And then do the same thing for variable and reserves. And then last one, times reserve rate, or a reserve account growth, which is 3 as well. They're all 3. So they're all 3. And then just, I don't know why that 1 or 2 decided to add in decimal points, but so, yep, that's for those 3. Total operating expenses is just the sum of the 3 numbers. So I'm going to do that real quick. Drag that across. Yeah, the net operating expenses, you're just going to take the effective gross income minus the total operating expenses. So C37, I think. Yep. Next, to get the debt service values, you're just going to take the rent times 12 for each of these. Rent times 12, and then to get this, I'm gonna lock this cell in because I want to be able to drag it across and adjust for the growth rates. So I don't know that worked. Sorry, it's not the rent times 12, it's the monthly payment times 12. So monthly payment is 16 that times 12. Yeah, I think that's better. Now we'll try to drag it. I don't know. Alright, I didn't think about it being all 3 the same number, but it's referencing the cell, so that's what we wanted. And then to get the before tax cash flow, it's just going to be the sum of these 2 numbers, the net operating expense and the minus the debt service. So calculate taxable incomes, and first we're just going to plug in the net operating income, which we have above. So just going to click that and drag this across, and actually just do the same thing with reserves. So now calculate the interest, and it's actually a relatively long formula, so we'll see how this goes. And I think it's cumulative interest payment, but could be wrong. But you're going to take first the mortgage rate, scroll up and find that. Divided by 12, comma, and then the loan term times 12, and then the loan amount of 300,000, and then the starting and ending periods. So let's see if this works. Does that look right? Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to lock in all these values here so that we can use them in the sliding them over to the next years. So I'm going to slide them over, and then we'll have to go back in and just change a couple things.